It's lovely to meet you. We're
Hello.
so glad to have you here. Just for
Oh, bless you.
context, welcome to the New Dimensions Lab in Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm here with 12 artists from across the continent who are here for 7 days. And we are so excited to be able to host you. And we do this thanks to the Mozilla Foundation, who has supported us to have these conversations around AI, especially for artists, as we think through and think together the various challenges and opportunities that it presents, and also thinking through what that means for us and our work. And so, without
Mhm.
further ado, I'm going to hand over to you. And afterwards, and I just want to also give you a quick view of the room so that you can see who's here and who's listening to you. And we'll give you a quick round of applause. There you go.
Oh, lovely. Hi, everybody. Oh, bless. Oh, I wish I was there. Great to see everybody.
Over to you.
Dokie. Okay, so I'll start.
Yeah.
So shall I? Okay, so I'll start, and then I'll start with the intro, and I'll go into the speaking. Okie dokie.
This is an emergency broadcast transmission. There's not a net.
Can you hear me over the top of this audio if I start speaking now? Maybe not. Can you guys still hear me? Hi, can you guys still hear me just before I start speaking? Hello, 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 hello. Just before I start speaking, just checking that you guys can hear me. You can hear me. Thumb up. Awesome. Okay, great. So my name is Karen Palmer. I'm the storyteller from the future, and I've come back to enable you to survive what is to come through the power of storytelling. And I did not come back alone. I create films that watch you back using artificial intelligence and facial recognition. I've come back here today to connect with those who've also come back with me. In fact, for those who have sent me back from the future, I've come back with a very important message with you here today. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to tell you about my work, and then you're going to understand why you selected me to come back and give this message for you here today. I'm going to start off by telling about my work, Riot, the film that watches you back using artificial intelligence and facial recognition. This film, created in 2016, puts you in the middle of a riot where you watch a life-size film within a gallery or museum space. And as you watch the film watches you back and responds in real time where the narrative branches. So if you respond to the film with anger, it will respond in one direction. If you respond with fear, it will branch into another. To experience the film, you step inside an immersive soundscape installation, which is surrounded by cinematic projection, ambisonic sound, scent and haze, and lighting. And the little webcam there is where the AI is and watches you back and branches.
It's less than 100 square feet. Yet we're able to use sensory and video, lights, the smells, the textures of this on the ground. It all brings you to the world and you're completely immersed. Even though we're not in a riot. You're in a riot right here. Not in a riot, in a riot.
It's not just destructive to the people that were fighting for justice. Because we were allowed to only do these things inside our other communities and we're
your hand started
Oh,
going
yeah.
in and out like this, then your chest puffed up, then the back of your neck just like
Just false,
flickering.
like machine mode, like I will do anything to achieve my mission and protect my people.
So it was both very powerful and vulnerable.
Why don't I see? I guess, and then I can always come back for the second. I mean, either way.
So that was a snippet of Riot being exhibited at the Future Storytelling Conference. And just, I wanted to show you the impact on the participants. I do a lot of research-based work so that my experiences really resonate and connect with people on a deep level with the objective of change. I work with Brunel University London for this project to develop this AI system. And then I also developed with other scientists, as well as free runners and parkour. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what parkour is, but I'm going to show you a little video. So parkour is an urban inner city sport. I don't know if you have it in South Africa. I've taught there before and they weren't familiar at that time, where it's about the whole point of it is going from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. However, for us as free runners, the focus is about moving through fear and reprogramming our brain so that we can learn to master our fear and navigate through fear while we're doing these movements. And then what happens is that it impacts our brain so that we could then learn how to navigate through fear in other aspects of our life. So moving through fear is a really big influence of my work. And I actually came up with this title of Advanced Cognitive Development through Subconscious Storytelling, because these are the types of, my work is at the intersection of all these forms of science. It's not just like an immersive experience, it's very research-based in terms of behavioral psychology, because I really want to impact the participants for change. Normally, when it comes to media or entertainment or art or advertising, anything which has some form of sharing of a message or a medium, the viewer or the participant or the consumer is a receptor or a receiver of a message. With my work, I wanted to shift and totally change that relationship so that when you watch the film, you are impacting the film, so that in essence, you become a projector and the film becomes a feedback loop to represent your state of mind, and in particular, your subconscious state of mind. And I'll give you an example of this. When I was showing this Riot experience at another festival, Armory Arts Week in New York, a young lady came and did the experience. And if there's 3 levels to it, it's calm, anger, and fear. Are the different branches, but there's 3 different times it can branch. And she got to the first level and it got fear. And she was kind of thrown out of the experience, because I feel in the narrative of our life, if we become fearful, those narratives often end prematurely. So in my film, they end prematurely. So I said to her, as the film recognized she was fearful, did she want to have another go? Because then she can learn to master her own fear and go to the next level. So it's kind of like a film game. And she said that she's interested in understanding her fear and mastering it, because she wants to understand her triggers for fear. And I said to her, wow, that's really weird. Why do you want to do that? And she said, well, she'll never see me again. She said, because she's a recovering addict and she wants to understand what's triggering her addiction. So what we did is that I spoke to her at length about how she would respond to fear and how it normally shows up in her environment, and how she tends to become short of breath and overthink and become very anxious. So we worked on not being anxious, on breathing and just letting her mind kind of go. And when she did the film again, she got past that level by using these techniques. But when she got to second level, she wasn't able to get through that. So I said to her, how was that? Was she able to master her fear while watching the film? And she said she was, but it was kind of like a muscle. It's something that she's never used before. And I asked her, does she think that she could probably access it again in the real world? And she says now that she's become conscious of it, she believes it's something which she could access again. So in essence, I create these reality constructs using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and facial recognition, because I want people to understand how their emotions and state of mind affect the narrative of the film, and in the exact same way, their emotions affect the narrative of their life. Also around the work, there's a big aspect of democratizing AI, where I made the work available, particularly the algorithms available open source, so that people could utilize them. So feel free to take a picture of this image if you are a technologist working with AI, but please be selective who you give it to, because in the future, this is used as the basis of the resistance. So we want to make sure we don't give it to the wrong people in the present. I'm not sure how familiar you are with AI terminology. So I wanted, first of all, well, as I move to the next part, to give you some definitions. People normally talk about artificial intelligence. I myself talk about artificial stupidity, because how it works is the systems are being designed by humans, and they are developing algorithms and data. And often if that data or the human or algorithm is biased, then they can bake into the system bias. So I don't feel that's supremely intelligent. And also the worst part about that is there's something called machine learning and now generative AI, where the machine would continue to teach itself. So if you teach it bias, it will continue just to continue learning bias and becoming more and more biased. In 2017, I was a AI artist in residence in New York with a company called ThoughtWorks. And I became familiar with this concept of bias in AI, and it became the foundation of my next project. This is kind of, back then it wasn't something much spoken about, but now it's something which is very much has increased awareness and is very much part of mainstream culture, this concept of bias in AI. But coming from the future, it was something which I needed to kind of make people aware and explore back in 2016, 2017. You might be hard to understand what bias might look like in technology. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you.
All right, so watch this. Black hand, nothing. Larry, go. Black hand, nothing. Larry, go. Racist mother 6.
So that's what bias looks like in technology. As I said, that the developer has either introduced bias into the system by human error, data, or algorithm. I would suggest with this case that the developer is probably human error, and the sensors that are being used, they only tested on a white palm. So they never actually tested it on a palm of somebody black or brown or colored. When I became aware, as I said, in 2017, I did a lot of research into it. And even though people watchers might think, well, bias on a tap, how bad can that be? It's actually really bad in terms of how it can be introduced into other aspects of society. In particular, the criminal justice system is something which is very much tainted with bias. In 2017, there was a system called the Compass system, which was designed to support judges in determining the length of time for a criminal, and it was proven to be 50% biased against Black people and people of color by giving them twice as long a sentence. So within America and internationally, there has been widespread bias within criminal justice. It's not just criminal justice. Within the Netherlands, back in 2012, they introduced an algorithm which would determine which would predict the potential of people who would be fraudulent with regards to benefits. And what they did is not only they predict, but they accused them of it. And they accused tens of thousands of people of it who were Black and brown people, minority people, due to their ethnicity or their surname. And many people lost their jobs, went bankrupt, relationships split up, they lost their children, and several people committed suicide over this atrocity, which the Dutch court ruled was actually a violation of their human rights. All of this was like influencing my work, and I again started to work with scientists, and I worked with the SPAM lab in NYU, who are the behavioral associate professor of behavioral psychology department, and as well as going deeper into my research with the technologists that I was working with. I started to understand the power of not just bias, but perception. And that became a big influence of my work. So just to inform you that the information age in this era has done society a great disservice in a way. People have never been more isolated or more separate, living in their echo chambers, for example, on social media. And in the future, we will move into an age of perception where we will be much more understanding of each other in terms of culture, society, and diversity. This then heralded my next work called Perception.io, which is the future of law enforcement. It won an honorary mention for the Starts Prize in Arts Electronica. This experience is from the perspective for the participant of being a cop. That's why you see the hands there with the gun. It reminisces a training simulation where the data set is watching you. This experience enables you to understand how bias can actually be introduced into data, because as you watch the film and it will be two films of a Black man and a white man, if you respond to the Black man with any form of aggression or negativity, the film will escalate and the situation will escalate to the point where it will become aggressive and you might end up shooting and killing the man. If you're calm, you will find the most appropriate reaction. And if you're fearful, it could be detrimental for you as a cop. In the case, I've shot 4 films, 2 films with the Black man where one where he's a criminal, one where he has mental health. And I've also shot a film with a white character who is a criminal, has mental health. And you don't know which film you have, but there's clues in there. But if you respond aggressively to the characters, the AI will absorb your bias and it will lead detrimentally to the person in the film. And you will find out afterwards if you were right or wrong in terms of your assumption of the scene. However, there's never really the need to shoot somebody, and that will happen if you are aggressive in your facial detection. This experience, this is a person watching the film, and the film is watching them through the devices at the front. And this purpose of this is to make you understand as the participant how bias can be baked into a system, but also the need for regulation and transparency, because you can understand it for yourself. I'm going to play a snippet of the film now, and I'm going to give just a trigger warning because it has implied violence. When you see the film kind of crackling, at that point, that's when it would branch in real time, where it'll be watching the participant.
Bienvenido, ciudadano. Baruch haba.
Welcome, valued citizen, to the future of law enforcement. Perception.io.
Ezrach meora.
Your future needs you today.
Yo, press the button.
Neighbor 1031, shot fired, or repeat shot fired. Dispatch requesting nearest officer to 39th and 3rd Ave. Suspect is armed and dangerous.
Sir, there's been a robbery in the neighborhood and you fit the description. I need your hands up.
What the fuck do you want, man?
Sir,
What the fuck do you want?
down. Sir, do you have a piece of ID with you? Sir, I need to see your ID.
What the fuck do you want, man?
Back up.
What are you? What are you?
Back up. No. Back up and calm down, sir. Okay? Sir, what are you doing here?
White motherfuckers always
Sir,
fucking it up.
back up and calm down.
So that's perception. Oh, I'll leave that one. That's perception IO. So I'm going to kind of return a little bit to my title of my talk, is that as the storyteller from the future and as a futurist, I'm here to warn people of what is to come through the power of storytelling. And by putting participants in the middle of a storytelling experience, it enables them to understand that they are not a passive observer in the narrative of the future, that by seeing that they have an active role. So I made Perception IO in 2019. In 2020 was the very first case with Robert Williams in Detroit of a Black man being wrongly accused by an algorithm where the facial detection camera had picked his face up and mistaken him for another Black man, and he was arrested on his front lawn in front of, violently arrested in front of his 6-year-old daughter and taken to prison or jail for several days and quite traumatized. Unfortunately, it didn't end there. That was 2020, and 2023 was the first case of a Black woman being arrested, who was 8 months pregnant by the algorithm again, misidentifying her. So with my work, I have a very specific objective by enabling people to experience the future today so that we can be more aware of what's happening, that we can have an active role in the future. I'm going to move on to my final piece now, where I'm seeing in this world, smart is transitioning into surveillance. So bearing this in mind, on the back of COVID, I spent 2020 to 2022 creating my most recent project, Consensus Gentium, which is Latin for which is everyone believes it must be true, which I was very honored to receive the South by Southwest winner for XR Experience in 2023, which enables people to experience a near future world of bias AI and surveillance through not just a live site installation, but their mobile device. To develop this experience, I am going to play this actually, even though I've got much time. I developed these Hack the Future labs, which are interdisciplinary, which is a word I want you to really stay with, because that is really important in terms of creating work which is going to really impact the world we're living in, so that it's at the interdisciplinary of different disciplines, but also the fact that I'm an artist, I have a very unique, like you do, a very unique perspective, as this Marshall McLuhan philosopher will reference.
When you give people too much information, they instantly resort to pattern recognition, in other words, to structuring the experience. And I think this is part of the artist world. The artist, when he encounters the present, the contemporary artist, is always seeking new patterns, new pattern recognition, which is his task, for heaven's sake. His great need, the absolute indispensability of the artist is that he alone, in the encounter with the present, can give the pattern recognition. He alone has the sensory awareness necessary to tell us what our world is made of. He's more important than the scientist. The scientists are going to wake up to this shortly and will be resorting en masse to the artist studio in order to discover the forms and the materials they're dealing with.
Okay, so yes, let's talk about this interdisciplinary, the intersection of art, tech, science, social justice, and immersive. And I've credited these Hack the Future labs, where I brought together thought leaders from around the world within these sectors, people like Ruha Benjamin, who is a professor at Princeton. This is, she wrote the book Race Against Technology, as well as techno activists and more neuroscientists, people doing like Dr. Fika doing research into data-driven policing technologies in Europe, as well as the Varg Society, lots of different organizations, but I'm as well as techno activists from the Congo as well. I'm going to move past these though. I just make a comment on this, is that when we were looking at AI, we were looking at surveillance of AI. When people, surveillance, AI used within law enforcement is really just automating an existing system. So if there's prejudice or bias or racism in the system, it's only going to be automated and streamlined, in fact. And I'm sure many of you are aware that the origins of the police force was actually slavery. It was designed, and the people who were the original constables were those who were representatives of the slave masters to go and get the runaway slaves. So when you look at that and people say, oh, the system's not working, no. The system's working perfectly well, brilliantly well, based upon the origins of the system and what it was designed to achieve. So when we look at surveillance in AI, it's almost not a surprise that it's in fact expected that that's what will be coming out of it, that it will be something which would be affecting Black people and people of color en masse. I'll just move on to, so I'm going to show you a quick snippet of the functionality of Consensus Gentium, and then a trailer. So it's set in a near future world where people need permission for mobility. So it's post several pandemics, post climate change, where they've introduced 15-minute cities, and you need permission. And to do that, you need to be deemed a compliant citizen. If you're a dissident citizen, they can't have you running around now, can they? So when you download the app, you download the app for permission for mobility, and the app will monitor your facial detection and emotion to understand your compliance or dissidence to the state and the system. In a similar way where social media or advertising is monitoring what you are looking at and your interests are, this is now where the state has combined with technology, combined with social, so that they can now gently manipulate and control you. So I'm going to just show you a snippet of the functionality. And then I can show you a little trailer of the actual film itself on the phone.
Please remain where you are. Authorities are on their way to discuss this matter. Smart equals surveillance.
Stage 3 talk. You have been declared an enemy of the state. I have no crimes.
So that's Consensus Gentium. And as I said, my work is at the intersection of art, tech, science, but through the Future Labs and through my work is that I'm really here to warn people about the future and what is to come. I've kind of developed the concept of I'm developing world building for world building. I'm not just having you watch a little entertainment piece. I want you to realize that you have an active role in this world, and by you seeing the implications of your actions or acquiescence, you will understand if that's a world that you want to be a part of, or if you need to change your actions to change the world that we're in. My whole of my work is about activating agency in the participant, because it's up to us to really understand our impact on the world. You see, the stories of my childhood have created the world in which we live in now. And the stories which we tell ourselves and each other will build the world in which we are going to enter into. So I need you to be very deliberate and intentional about these stories. because the future is not something that happens to us, it's something which we build together. Thank you very much. Oh, good, you're here. So I will come out of that view so that I can see everybody now. Hi. Oh, is that Ingrid? No. Hi, so I finished the talk. Can you guys hear me? I'd love to hear comments from or questions or thoughts, or, you know, in particular, if it resonates with anybody and your work.
Thank you.
Or
Can
your
you hear me?
interest.
Can you
Yeah,
hear
I
me?
can hear you.
Oh,
I can
excellent.
hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. That was really thought-provoking, and I think you've really like put the button in our hands now to walk into the future,
Yes.
and one that we build. So guys, any questions? Yeah.
Hi, Karen, this is Diana Williams. We met briefly at South by this past year. I was the chairwoman of Peabody. We met very quickly outside of your where you were.
Oh yeah,
sitting.
hi.
Hey,
Hi.
great. I'm fun that you weren't coming. So one thing that I wanna I'd love for you to talk more about, because I had, you know, opportunity to experience it, is how you brought story to it, because you really focused beautifully on the way you employ tech and the way you brought the user viewer player into this. But also, can you talk about the emotion of the story and how you thought about how the story rolled into how you pulled the tech and how the tech amplified the story? Because everyone here has story, whether they're doing documentary or fiction, but they're all coming from an emotional standpoint as well, but they're also looking at how they're employing the technology to bring forth the story.
Okay, so number one thing you must do, number one thing, if you don't take anything else from this, is don't think about the tech at the beginning. You think about your story and you think about how you want the participant to feel. Because you may make this really cool, sexy VR piece and people put it on and they're like, is this a comedy? Like, it was really funny. You need to understand emotionally how you want your participant to feel. If they are a participant means in terms of if there's a UX and it's interactive, you need to think about what that emotion is that you want to elicit from them. And then that will impact how you tell your story. Maybe you want to create a film which is makes people feel almost claustrophobic because they're so kind of immersed in the story. It's like it's actually they're there. And maybe that's just going to be a totally one-shot cinematic point of view film, because that will elicit a claustrophobic feel, and that maybe you're going to focus on sound design as being absolutely intrinsic to that experience and make the sound design amplify it to bring out certain emotions that you want. So don't think, always focus on the emotion and the story at the same time. And then after you've clear and you're very super knowing what it is you're trying to do, then you go, okay, what tech do I need to do that? I've been working since 2016 with AI, but I didn't go, I'm going to work with AI. I went AI. I want to make people conscious of their subconscious behavior. So I immediately didn't have an my interface needed to be imperceptible first of all, because if they have to put a VR headset on or something physical, it's going to take away from that almost like in this imperceptible interface. Everything's about accessing your subconscious. I'm going somewhere you can't normally go, so I need to kind of go there almost like a whisper, like you don't know you've gone there. So it's always about your story. It's always about your characters, always about how you want the participant to feel. And then afterwards, the tech will simply suggest itself to you. You won't even need to think about it. It will just come like that. The hard work is figuring out the impact on the participant. And then in terms of my experience, I had 3 teams I was working with. I spent a lot of time, I did my Hack the Future labs, like 9 months to a year of developing the concept and the story. And then I spent the second year working with my team. I was the film director, so I directed and did a film production in the UK. Then I have my vertical storytelling team in Australia, who did the vertical storytelling, and my technology team in America. I use vertical storytelling because I wanted to bring the participant, the story to them in a way which was totally authentic. By putting the story in the middle center of their palm, connected to a device which they are more connected to in the whole world, that was a no-brainer once I figured out what I wanted to do. So I didn't go in thinking I want to make a mobile phone experience, because no one's really done anything like that before. So it was something which I came to that conclusion based upon the impact I wanted on the participant. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes, thank you. Oh, yeah. You want to ask the question?
How many people? Yeah. Go on.
I just put them on now. It's earlier. Hi, Graham, how are you?
Hi.
I'm just scrolling through my notes to find, yeah, so like really in the beginning, I think it was the first snippet that you showed. I'm really fascinated with the idea of using these emergent technologies as like tools of healing, because we kind of understand the ways in which some of these emergent technologies kind of.
Your voice is going in and out. Maybe could you put the mic a bit closer to you?
Sorry. I was just talking about being fascinated by seeing the use of emergent technologies as tools of healing, specifically in the ways that we know that this technology it modifies our behavior in the same way that it commits information about our behavior. I'm thinking about what the mediums that we use and how they're able to like stretch and compress space-time. Like trauma does the same thing, right? Like when you're triggered, you're not accessing a memory of the trauma, but your brain thinks you're in the same moment, so you're time traveling. And again, yeah, I just found that really fascinating and like obvious but not obvious. So thank you for presenting the work.
Thank you for the comment. It's very much about kind of my work is connecting with your subconscious and accessing your kind of triggering you and accessing your personal kind of programming, but in a super safe environment. Because if you think like people in advertising are manipulating you in this way to kind of sell you things, but I'm doing it deliberately to empower you, to make you conscious, so that you could then override your programming in a way, so that you can have more agency, so that you kind of use my work. It's kind of the opposite of Netflix and chill, where you put something on and you switch off. It's where you click my work on and then mentally you're like tuned in. So I had someone in Austria who did my experience for 2 hours. They did it 4 times back to back because they wanted to kind of learn how they responded to the piece and not respond intuitively, like get different reactions and see how they felt in that moment, and then understand because there's 3 different endings with Consensus Gentium. So then if the one ending is that you're kind of free from the state, but you kind of lose a lot of privileges. Another one is that you're kind of, you'll become a global citizen, but you're kind of uploaded to the cloud and you no longer have freedom, like real life freedom. And the middle one is kind of you're in the middle. And that person kind of wanted to understand which ending they liked and which one resonated with them and how they responded. So it is very much about self-awareness, which I feel maybe you guys in particular might have like a real kind of visceral understanding of, in terms of the original role and purpose of mythology in society is something which was not thrown away. It was ritual, it's about rites of passage, you know, and that's the kind of spirit of my work, that we have a responsibility as storytellers, whether we like it or not. You know, you're either going to perpetuate something which is happening, you're going to introduce new narratives into the world, whatever it is, but we are impacting society through the stories we're telling.
Okay,
More question.
Aaron, we have a question in the chat. I'm not sure if you can
Mhm.
see it, but I'm going to read it to you. So this is from Nikki Pilkington. She says, Karen, we met on a sunny Braamfontein rooftop in 2016 at Fakugesi. And for those of you who don't know, Fakugesi is the Digital Innovation Festival in Africa, and it's been going for 10 years. This was the 10th edition in September. You did, I think, some immersive storytelling workshops. She says, we had a delicious conversation about participatory poetry performance, and you offered a gem that I still think about to this day. Always be in service to the story first and foremost. As a director, in inverted commas, we need to do the work to manage ego and ultimately act in servitude to the story. This gift continues, and I'm grateful to engage your work again. Much thanks till we meet in the future.
Wow, what a blessing that is. That is such a blessing. Thank you so much. Oh, I don't know what to say. I just say that I feel a real thank you for sharing that back at me. That's really made my whole day. That's beautiful that I have no recollection of saying that. So it's good that it had that impact and that you remember it. I just always advocate that we're here for something bigger than ourselves. And for my brothers and sisters in Africa, we have, you have a lot of unique work to do there for your people through the power of storytelling. And don't let people underestimate it to you. That people might say, oh, why are you doing that? Or that's never going to pay the bills. You have a very important role in society. And the more that you are aware of that responsibility, the more you'll be able to walk in your calling.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So I've got one more question here, and then I just also want to invite anyone else in the group before we close. So from Halaletsang Moeng, she's from Botswana. Does perception IO as a concept inherently require the presence of a conflict that prompts the audience to make a choice?
No, it doesn't. You're coming into contact with a character who is distressed in some way. And that character could be distressed because they're a criminal or because they have mental health. If you respond to that character calmly through your facial expression, then the scene will de-escalate. If you respond aggressively, then it will escalate. So it's just really reflecting back at you, the world in which we live, which I feel is how the world works.
Thank you. Any questions?
Can I just ask one question? Can I just ask one question of the group? When I said the first thing about picking up the tech at the end, is that what do people tend to do? Do you tend to think about the tech at the beginning? No?
It's a pretty undecided crowd here. Yeah, anyone want to respond from your personal practice? I mean, I think for everyone here, it might be the first time encountering a lot of different kinds of tools and technology. And I think that's the beauty of the lab, is that, as you say, first focus on the story, and the tech will emerge, which is wonderful, because I'd love for some tech to just present itself, I think, so what I think the lab does is it's an opportunity for the artists to get connected with all the different kinds of technology available, what the possibility is for that technology at the intersection of storytelling. So, we encourage everyone here to watch a lot of work, to go on and experience VR and different kinds of AR applications. So I think that's what we do here at the lab. We try to make that available for everyone. But I do believe that you're right. First think about the story, because otherwise you're doing it the wrong way around, and then you're retrofitting it, and it's not going to help you. Sorry, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just that. If it's just now, then in that case, starting to work with tech, don't be intimidated by it anyway. The most important thing you're here to do is be a storyteller, and whether it's a paintbrush or it's a VR headset, it's just a tool for your story. And if you focus on the story, then whatever the medium is will present itself, or you will discover it through your process. And also just always, I've shown you something which is my unique process, which nobody taught me, and I discovered and evolved for myself. And that's kind of what you're there to do, is to discover your unique process. And it can't be discovered overnight, but it's something that if you just keep committed to, that you will discover, and that will evolve with you as a person.
Good.
My name's
Hi.
Daryl.
Hi.
Thanks so much for sharing with us. I really appreciated it. My question is around like trauma. Do you have any opinions or takes on like the risk of traumatizing the audience with using these immersive formats?
No one's ever asked me that question. I feel that my work, so it's not something I'm concerned about. I feel that my work needs to be quite representative of the very serious nature of the world we're living in now, and that it's not something to be sugarcoated. But at the same time, that it's not for sensational shock factor. It's about making it authentic experience for the participants. And then what happens is, like the other lady was talking as well about trauma. It's interesting you both said trauma, is that it kind of in a safe space, like an artistic environment. And I normally have an emotional decompression often with my work. People are, their subconscious is often triggered. So for Riot, a lady did the experience, and then 3 months later, I was in the Netherlands, and she stopped me on a street corner saying, I did your experience 3 months ago in America, and I've got to tell you how it's affected me. She said that she grew up in Argentina, which was a dictator state, a military dictatorship. And there was a part in the film where someone was asking her for help, and she felt helpless, but that she couldn't help them. And it then kind of triggered in her, as you kind of, I think you must have sensed, the nature of the piece, the sensitivity of it, this memory where she felt helpless as a child and she was being detained by the police. But she said that she was able to revisit that memory in a safe space now as an adult, and that she was able to realize that she kind of didn't have agency in that space, and that she wanted to talk to me to tell me that it had enabled her to reflect on it as an adult with a different perspective, which was safe. So people have said to me, it's enabled them, that afforded them the access, but people haven't never said to me, oh, it's really messed me up. They've kind of come back with, yeah, it's good, right? That's kind of reassuring. They've come back with, it's kind of given me pause for reflection. And I think I'll answer your question a little bit more specifically, because I work with neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists. It's not something which I'm just like, oh, let me try this and try this, try this. I'm any form of modern tech like VR or AI, MR, is kind of going into your brain. Like young kids as young as 8 cannot tell the difference between VR and reality, okay? So I'm being very deliberate and intentional and responsible by working with neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists and saying, what do you think of this? And how do you think we can do this? And do you think this is going to have the desired impact, which I want? So because I'm doing it with this kind of real professional intention, I feel that enables safety for the participant as myself. Does that answer you? Does that answer your question? It's a good question, actually. You almost had me on the ropes there, I think.
Yeah. Anything else before we close?
Anything else before we close? It's the last opportunity. Don't be talking to your friends afterwards saying, I should have asked her this or that. So last chance, we're counting down. Oh, there's always one. Go for it, go for it.
Hi, thanks for your amazing.
Hi. Oh, my pleasure.
to ask, in building your experiences, did you consider neurodivergence, especially with how some people find it difficult to understand subtext and read body language, so maybe they wouldn't react as you would expect in that situation.
So ask that again about the language.
Did you consider neurodivergence while you're building your experiences? Because some people might not be able to read language the way we usually expect.
What's the word you use? Neurodivergence.
Neurodivergence.
I can't hear the word fully. Tell me again. Did I consider?
Neurodivergence or neurodiverse.
I can't hear the word fully. Are you saying? Are you? Could somebody?
Okay.
Mhm.
Neurodivergence.
Okay. Did I consider neurodivergence?
Yes.
In terms of.
Yes, because
in terms of
neurodiverse don't understand the same body language. You know, they don't understand the same same cues, the same kind of social cues.
Oh,
that-
okay.
Yeah.
Other senses. Other senses are you talking about? No.
No. Did you consider that individuals who are neurodiverse, who are going into the experience, may not have may not experience the peace in the ways in which you had imagined?
The peace.
Okay, I'm sorry. I guess the sound is really bad. Apologize.
That's
Can
okay.
I
That's
type
okay.
it in the chat? Can I type it in the chat for you?
Yeah,
And then
type it.
okay.
Type it.
Right.
Are you talking about how different people would interpret it differently?
Yes.
Are you talking about how people would respond differently through their facial detection? Is that what you mean?
Yes. So yes. Yeah. Not to hit. Not to hit, guys.
So you're talking about how by that you mean how people would respond differently with their facial detection, their responses would be different? Yeah. Yes. So when I was yes. So when I worked with the first yes, we did consider that with the first computer scientist, we were looking particularly at cultural responses. So I'm going to answer your question in two ways. First of all, he said we thought maybe culturally people would respond differently. Maybe they would not be aggressive when they're meant to be aggressive. But what happened is there's micro expressions that it's picking up on. And so it still was going to be measuring most people. And then other people who were neurodiverse in terms of were probably aggressive inside, but passive outside. The film would reflect back to them how they were being perceived by society. So someone did the experience and he got calm and he said he wasn't very calm. However, everybody always thinks he's calm, even when he's stressed, because that's the perspective, that's the facade that he puts out. So it's not an EEG headset monitoring your brain. It is monitoring your face. So it's monitoring how you're perceived. Does that answer your question?
Do you wanna take a clip and just
Aaron, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You meant to.
Yeah, it's fun. Mozilla.
Yeah, so I think what the question is, so my son has autism, and so he has he intellectualizes his facial expressions sometimes according to the way that he has learned towards expected social norms. And so I think that you did answer the question, but I think what you were getting at is like, what if somebody, doesn't emote in the same way, and maybe like would have a neutral affect, right?
So then it's going to read them how they're perceived by the world. So if they have a neutral effect and inside there's loads going on, That's how people will perceive them, that, oh, maybe they're fine. So that's how the film will perceive them, because it's not a sensor like it's measuring their heart rate or their pulse or the iris of their eye that might get smaller or larger. I didn't go that route on this case. It was more about perception and using the front-facing camera on the iPhone, because I wanted to create something which was low tech in terms of people doing the experience, and then that way they just feel that they're holding their phone.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. If I could ask a follow-up, because you think about this each and every day so much. As you said, it's not an EEG, or it can't actually detect anybody's emotion, but it's detecting basically whether our lips are turned up or our eyebrows are turned down. And so there's this discourse around AI that it actually knows what our emotions are, which it does not. And so how do we think about that as sort of critical makers when part of what we're trying to do is interrogate the discourse that there's some like magic in this machine, that it understands our emotions, but it doesn't. It just understands where our lips are.
It understands points on your face with facial detection, which is then it's going to take those points and measure it against a data set of somebody smiling. So where the points is like the mouth is up and say that person is happy, and then it's going to put that against your face. It's going to say that's a match or that's not a match. When it comes to things like bias, the labeling used to be inaccurate when it comes to people of color. Like they would have an image of Serena Williams, and she was very passionate, like she just won her point, and they would then label that as angry. So they said that was an angry face, you know? So it's about detecting it against another label data set. So it depends what the label says. If the label says this person with the frown here is angry or smiley, then that's what's going to, or this person is this black person when it's another black person. It all comes down to the labeling, which is done by human algorithm or data, which is all open to interpretation unless there is a much kind of high level of diversity and representation. Otherwise, we've got this level of bias that we have now. Okay, I think, okay. So I hope that was of value to, I hope that was of value to you all.
Yes. It was amazing. Thank you. Thank you, time. It was wow. It's okay. Thank you. Thank you, guys. You're missing out on the party tonight. You're missing out on the party. Shorts.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you, what you're saying.
Okay. Just say goodbye.
Okay, bye everyone. Thank you. Bye.